Welcome to Silicon Valley Impact, where business insight meets startup innovation. And now, your host, Brian Sparks and Marylene Becker.
Let's hear it. All right, welcome to Silicon Valley Impact, everybody, on Pirate Cat Radio, KPCR 92.9 FM in Los Gatos and beyond. What you're about to hear is edited for radio. I'm your host, Brian Sparks, and with me today, my co-host, Marylene Becker. Marylene, good to have you back. We are the fourth Tuesday. Yep. It is you in the studio. Lisa is not with us today. She is on assignment, but I love our time together, and we have a full house.
We have a full house. I'm so excited to be back, and we have three incredible female founders here with me in the studio. I look up to each one of them, so I'm excited to have the conversations with them.
Yeah, and it's going to get heated in here. It's going to be a lot of energy. We have Janet off mic. Hello, Janet. We will be on mic in a minute. However, we also have Heather. She is here, and our main guest, Marylene. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
So before I fully kick it over to you, Marylene, why don't you go around and have our guests give a little intro about themselves? And again, I'm going to let you just take control at this point because today's your show.
Sounds good. I got this.
All right, let's do it.
Ryan. All right. Heather, tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, hi. Happy to be here. My name's Heather Hochrein. I'm the founder and CEO of EVmatch. And EVmatch is an early-stage electric vehicle software company, and we're focused on increasing access to reliable and convenient EV charging. So I bring a background from really clean energy and electric utilities, and started the company in 2017. I really saw this need for increasing accessibility to electric vehicles and saw that most folks who rent and live in apartments don't have access to EV charging today. So I started the company to really address that problem, and we've been growing ever since.
Love it. Climate tech is such a growing field, and it's one of the fastest growing field and growing industry. So really excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Marylene, tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Marylene Delbourg-Delphis. I've been a serial CEO. I've been the CEO of multiple companies in Silicon Valley. I came in the mid-'80s here. At the time, there were very, very few women in tech. Definitely even fewer European women. And I've always also helped other entrepreneurs build their business. So in practice, I've helped so far about 40 entrepreneurs. And I'm creating a group of CEOs, interactive advisory group of CEOs, sorry. And I also write books. My latest book is about innovation. It's called Beyond Eureka, The Rocky Roads to Innovating.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. Can we get her to hold up a copy of the book?
Yeah, so hold up a copy of the book. So Brian and I are sitting in a unique figuration today. I feel so far away from Marylene. I'm in the back of the studio.
Yeah, one more time.
Yeah, show that to our audience. So,
Here you go.
Marylene, that's Beyond Eureka. It focuses on innovation. It just came out.
It did.
How can people get a copy of the book?
Amazon.
Okay, you're good.
Amazon. Okay, so, and that's available now. We will have information on how to get your copy in the show notes for those that are watching. But Marylene, again, today is focused on women and leadership. We'll have Janet take the mic in a little bit and give an intro about her.
Yes.
But tell us a little bit about the structure of the show today and how we're going to talk to these amazing women. And of course, talk a little bit about why you're so focused on helping women in the startup community.
Definitely. The reason why I'm so focused on helping women in the community is very simple. 50% of the population are women, right? So we need to build products that are led by women, for women, by women. No one understands a woman like another woman. So we need to be representative, especially in tech. We're building the products for the next generation. So we need women voices in them. Beyond that, this show, I'm really excited to have Marylene because she was one of the first tech female CEOs in the Valley. She started a database company. So I want to walk her I want to go through your journey, and then I want to talk to Heather on how you got your first customers and how you started. And then we have a big announcement with Janet, so stay tuned until the end of the show.
Nice hook play. I love it. Nice hook. All right. Okay, so
Awesome.
stay tuned.
And then I met Janet through different networking events. So I want to talk to her about how she built an amazing network and learn from her. So thank you all for being there, and thank you, Brian, for having me. So Marylene, should we dig into your story? Tell us a little bit about how you made it all the way from Paris.
Well, it's a little by chance, actually. My background is a PhD in philosophy.
Wow.
I'm French. Nobody's perfect, right? And I was also writing on the history of fashion and fragrance. And as I was writing on the history of fragrance, I needed a database to manage my research. At the time, the choice was not really big, and the available products were kind of difficult, unpleasant to say the least. So I ended up creating a relational database company, the first graphical relational database on Macintosh. And the French market was nice, but it was small. So I ended up coming to Silicon Valley, which I didn't know. And
you're talking about what year was this?
In 86.
In 86, okay.
And so I didn't realize that I didn't fit, but I tried to understand the environment. And I was lucky enough to meet Guy Kawasaki, who was at the time the Macintosh evangelist. And I suggested that he would join me in my effort. He did. I'm very grateful for that. And we have remained friends ever since. And after that, I created multiple other companies here. Because my daughter was born here, and she preferred to live in America than in France.
That's amazing how you needed a database for the perfume article you were writing, and then you created, a large tech company here in the Bay Area. Tell me a little bit about some of the milestones that you accomplished with that company. I know you told me that you bootstrapped.
I did bootstrap, and
Okay.
because at the time, nobody would give money to a woman in France because there were very few VCs anyway. And when I came over here, I was a foreigner. I didn't have any network. So the first condition to actually be able to raise money is to have a network, to be part of the genealogies of knowledge and money that makes Silicon Valley what Silicon Valley is. And then, the product was great. So when you start, it does help to have a great product. And we had a very big ecosystem. We reached $50 million, 50, pretty quickly.
Wow.
And we never raised money. And the ecosystem around this product, the database that I was selling, was close to $1 billion, actually.
So Marylene, I've got a question that I really want to double click on. You said that it was your network, your social capital that really helped you in the beginning to raise the money you need to get going, to launch. But then I also heard you say something about getting to your first 50 million, and it was also your ability to lean on your network. So are you saying as an early stage company, connecting with people is really one of the biggest things that helps you get to your milestones?
Actually, when I came, I didn't have that network. So that's why to all the women around, I recommend that you build
You
the network.
built it, yeah.
Because I didn't have it. But I was lucky enough to build it fairly quickly because of my customers.
How did you do that? I mean, you say your customers, but really, how did you accelerate it so quickly with people?
How did you even get the first customers?
Yeah.
Well, I was helped by Apple. There were not too many relational databases at the time, and there was actually very few. And very quickly, I built a community of developers, and they became my evangelists. And when you have 10 people, you easily have 100.
Ooh, 10 people. Okay, that's a data point, right?
Okay.
You named 10 people,
Yeah.
and it quickly went to
100.
Okay.
Because they speak around. And then when you have 100, you get to 1,000 pretty quickly. So really, my first company was a lot of word of mouth, and we had a great image. For the other companies, I was more reliant on the existing network of Silicon Valley.
So you bring a really good point, is that first off, the first 10 customers are the hardest to get, but then if you do an amazing job, these customers are going to be your biggest fans and your biggest evangelists.
Yes.
And it seems like that's what happened with your first company.
That's completely true. And actually what I did, it was before the internet, but I organized user groups on various networks pre-internet. And I allowed my customers to speak to each other.
That's clever.
And so when one had a problem, which is frequent when you sell software, you have always somebody helping spontaneously.
Can you
So
tell me
it became a real community.
Can you remind me what year this was?
It was in the 80s.
Yeah, 96 or 86.
86.
Right? Yeah. So you said something really interesting about, you really, again, have insight into people. You grew your network. Tell me now a little bit, with Marianne, maybe you can help me kind of formulate the right question. You speak a lot about innovation. And it sounds like you're innovative, not just with tech, but you're innovative with people. And then that transferred to your company as a whole.
Yeah, in fact, being innovative is having a sense of opportunity. When you don't have the opportunities, you build them, okay? You become very pragmatic. And I was basically connecting with everybody who was open to connecting with me. Being innovative is really being very pragmatic. Take things the way they come and leverage everything that comes your way.
And I've heard that from multiple entrepreneurs, which is how to be innovative. Like, do you have a problem that you encountered so much and you believe that you're the best person to solve it? And in your case, right, you encountered that problem hands-on and you didn't find another solution, so you built it. And I love that because that's what innovation is.
I believe that too. But then it's important also to have the others tell how great you are. It's not enough to say that you're great.
It's having evangelists.
It's key to have your customers tell everybody else how great you are. This is the best marketing.
I love it. I could just sit there forever. I'm fascinated. So your book, Beyond Eureka, focuses on this journey of innovation. Yes. What are some high-level insights from your book that you feel your market readers will really get almost like a counterintuitive perspective? Because I'm hearing that a lot from you right now already. You approach things from a counterintuitive perspective.
One of the main thing is that you don't need to be disruptive to disrupt. Okay? So forget about the vocabulary around disruption. Just do something that people will like. Don't try to change the entire world because it would come naturally if the product enables it, first off. Mm-hmm. So most of the entrepreneurs that come to me and say, well, my product is disruptive. I said, how do you know that? You don't unless you have done it. So stop speaking the disruption language. Second thing that you can start almost anywhere in the world, especially these days. But in all cases, try to find places where there is so much momentum that you feel kind of lifted by the momentum around. So that's what it is to find the right place.
Oh, I like that. You can begin where you are with what you have.
Exactly.
You don't need to recreate the entire world. If you encountered a problem, you can try to find innovation in that. And start
Exactly.
We talked about the 4 immutable laws a couple of shows ago, and the first 2 were, now is the time, and the people that are around you are the right people. And so those were the first 2 principles that AJ shared with us a couple of weeks ago.
And that's exactly what you've shared.
Yes, and regarding the time, don't forget that it's the time for everybody else also. Because when we have a great idea, we are not the only one to have a great idea, okay? So what you have to find is what exactly within a given time is going to be attractive, and how fast are you going to move? Because lots of products, in AI, for example, you have 10,000 people doing AI right now, okay? What is going to carry them over all the hurdles that they are going to encounter? So evaluating time and timing can be a complex story, and I have a full chapter around this.
You talk about momentum, and definitely AI has a lot of momentum right now. What are some of the opportunities you're seeing in AI and some of the pitfalls that entrepreneurs should avoid when it comes to the momentum around AI?
Okay. So there is a huge momentum around AI. I definitely believe that there is a lot of opportunities around enterprise
Okay.
product. This is where the need is going to be and already is. And to try to use existing systems and add AI. It's not going to come just overnight. Okay. There are many pitfalls. And in reality, when you're an innovator, you fall into all the traps that you can possibly find. And the talent is to get out of those pits.
Give us a couple examples of pits.
Just do yet another chatbot because you believe that chatbots have a future.
Oh no, I'm doing a chatbot.
Okay.
What do I do about it? Should I
Turn
close
off my
it off?
computer right
Turn it
now.
off. I know what I'm going to delete on my computer. When
No, don't delete. Don't delete, but simply find an angle that people underuse.
Got it.
It's always to find the little thing that people are not thinking of. Because we have to have all the features that everybody else has. What we have to do is to have the little feature that nobody has.
And the one differentiator.
A small differentiator. Usually it's a small one. It's not necessarily a big one.
I'm so fascinated. Okay, so I'm still stuck on how you use language to look at something from a different perspective. You said a few times, find the opportunity. And a lot of times people will say when innovation is confronting a problem, talk about the problem. Is there a difference in the way that you're choosing to use problem versus opportunity?
So you have to find a problem that
So they're
everybody has.
interchangeable. Okay. Yeah.
But once you have found a problem, you have to be very opportunistic about the way you solve it.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
You don't need to have exactly all the features that everybody has. You must have the feature that very few have.
Marylene, okay. Marylene, let me say this. I watched a short today on LinkedIn about the CEO of NVIDIA. NVIDIA?
Yes.
Yeah. Where they first started out, and he emphatically said, we knew nothing about what we were doing. And of course, now they're a $2 trillion, your company, or $2 trillion. And so what you're saying is, once you see the opportunity, once you see the problem, just go for it. Just lean into it.
Exactly. And I think NVIDIA is a perfect example and of great innovators because they had all sorts of detours.
And
They had an idea and they kind of molded the idea around opportunities. They were opportunistic.
yeah, they first went on the gaming train, and then they went on the Web3 train, and now in the AI train. So NVIDIA really leaned into every opportunity they could get, and they conquered the market, which is super impressive.
Exactly. One of the first quality of an entrepreneur, an innovative entrepreneur, is to be very adaptable, very flexible. We will be completely convinced that we have the great idea of the planet. In fact, we have to change ideas quite a few times before we actually do something that will matter.
So I definitely want to start to integrate Heather into this conversation. But with your book, Beyond Eureka, and all your success up at this point, I kind of want to summarize what you've gone over. Number one, I heard you say, in a big transition, you found yourself a mentor, and then you strategically found those 10 that help you grow to 100. You focused on your social capital, leaned into an opportunity and a problem without the answers, figured it out, and innovated. And you gave a lot of great insight around innovation with your book, Beyond Eureka, which you can get on Amazon. What's next for you, and what would be the ultimate vision casting for you, so to speak, in the next 18 months? I know it's moving quick, and that's a big question, but really, what's next for you?
I never think of what's really next for me. I take time as it comes. Right now, what I'm building, however, is an advisory group of CEOs where the CEOs can help one another, and I'm going to facilitate the group. and probably add a little bit of my experience.
Is this like a mastermind group? Is it focused around women? Is it just CEOs? Like, tell me a little bit more.
CEOs. It so happened that I have quite a few women already candidates for this group.
And why is it important to get people together? Because I know coaching and masterminds and groups are such a big support. What is kind of your motivation behind getting the group together?
My motivation is that as CEO, we are supposed to know everything, and we are afraid to admit to ourselves that we have problems. So sometimes hearing somebody else speaking of their problem help us to understand we have it too.
I love that, because being a CEO is one of the lonelier job that you can have. And now
That's completely correct.
and there's no kind of support groups for CEOs, so that's what you're building.
There are support groups, but mostly networking groups. What I want is people to be able to speak very freely of their problems so that we solve it collectively. Think of it as a sort of interactive dynamic boot camp.
I love
camp
that.
for CEOs.
In fact, Marianne, I was going to talk to you about a group. Okay, you and I are going to geek out a little bit more, Marilyn. I want to thank you so much, but yeah, Marianne, let's pivot, bring Heather into this conversation, and Marilyn, you're not going anywhere because we want you to continue to contribute to this conversation. But Marianne, I want to pivot and bring Heather into the conversation.
Heather, thank you for joining us. All right,
excited to be here.
Tell us what inspired you to start your company. What was the moment where you're like, well, I got to do this?
Yeah, well, I was studying environmental science and management in graduate school, and this was in 2016. And I bring a background from clean energy efficiency, and I've always been motivated about how technology can really have environmental benefits and particularly help us address the climate crisis. And so what I saw at that time is that really we have many of the tools and had many of the tools to decarbonize transportation, which in the US is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions. And at the time, there were many EVs on the road. Well, actually, I say many, mostly Tesla. But people were not adopting them if they didn't live in a single family home. So you really had to own a single family home to have reliable charging and feel like an EV would work for your lifestyle. And I saw this as a huge lost opportunity. Shifting from a gas car to an EV can reduce tailpipe emissions by 80%. And folks who wanted to have these benefits, who care deeply about the environment or saving money, couldn't access the technology. So I saw, this was in 2016, also sort of the benefits of the sharing economy and the need for increased EV charging. And I saw, wow, there's an opportunity to put those together.
Definitely, because people who live in buildings, then if they don't have an EV charger, if they don't have a single family home, how do they access it?
Exactly. So I actually worked on the problem, this lack of EV charging for renters and apartment dwellers, as my master's thesis in grad school. And then, I was so convinced, which in retrospect, I'm like, wow, I was a little bit crazy, that this was, a really exciting opportunity that I started the business right out of grad school. First time entrepreneur and a nascent market. But really, it was a huge opportunity to get in early at a time when there were really very few companies solving this problem.
So that's what Marylene said, is that you saw an opportunity, you saw the problem firsthand, you wrote about it in your master, and then you took charge of it. You decided to build something to fix that problem.
And so I wanted to highlight, I thought the point earlier about being flexible and adapting is really critical. So we actually started EVmatch as a peer-to-peer network for EV charging. So think Airbnb for EV charging. And we launched it with this platform for reservations and bookings of single-family home chargers. And, we were growing that business. Really, we were attending lots of events, talking to EV drivers. You asked, how do we get our first customers? It was literally talking to folks, flyering cars, meeting them at events, finding people with the problem and literally putting them together. And what we learned over the next year or so is that folks were requesting this reservation system in multifamily housing. And so we kept hearing this over and over again. And at the time, our product didn't have that feature. But we really heard the market demands and market needs and saw the opportunity. So we went back, built a variety of new software features, and then in 2020, we launched a whole new platform for multifamily housing with integrated hardware. And that's what we've been building since. We still support that broader Airbnb software platform, but from a sales and marketing perspective, really focus on selling to apartments.
And I love that, because a lot of entrepreneurs, what I see happen is they have this idea of what the product should be, and they go and they spend years building it, and then they don't talk to customers up until it's too late. But you did the opposite. You had an idea on how to solve the problem, but you went out and then you talked to customer and you actually found the thing that people want. And then what happened after that?
Yeah, so it's been an exciting journey. We've been growing our business. We have chargers in over 47 US states. We've integrated with almost half a dozen EV charger manufacturers. We are bringing a new product to market that allows us to actually retrofit any charger out there and layer our reservation software on top of that. That's technology we've licensed from the US Department of Energy. So really, it's just getting started. When you think about where we're at with this market, it's still sort of the tip of the iceberg. But we know that this demand for charging among renters and apartment dwellers is just getting started. So I think the fact that we were able to pivot early on and see really where the market opportunity was and make the product changes to serve that market was really important, and something I'm really proud of my team for working on.
All right, I have a joke for you. Brian, I have a joke for you.
Okay.
How do founders greet each other?
With a pitch?
Almost. He's like, hey, have you pivoted today? And that's exactly what you were saying, right? Is that you kept pivoting to figure out product market fit.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Cue the laugh track.
I think I have one somewhere.
Yeah, where's the laughter?
What I really like
I'm not
about
sure.
the habits, there
I'm
we
not
go.
sure where it is.
I really like the fact that you emphasize the fact that we have an idea, but we can take several roads and multiple paths.
I love, so I want to double click on this, because Marylene, you were talking about this, and then Heather, you talked about this, about your ability to listen to your customer.
Yes.
So often a great idea will be hatched by an individual, and then they'll pursue that idea, fall in love with that idea, and then as kind of an afterthought, well, let me go see now what my market my market size is, right? And then they create this hypothetical market size where you have your TAM, SAM, and your SOM, but yet have no ICP at this point. So I'm loving this, and so those of you who are listening, ICP is ideal client profile. But you really, both of you really buttoned that down early and tailored your company in that direction. What were some of the lessons you learned in terms of finding the right product market fit early on? And Heather, I'll start with you, and then Marylene, I want to hear kind of like what your journey was in identifying your ICP.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a lot? Did I say too much?
Good.
All right.
I think that some of it is really collecting data, and I think a lot of companies are very good at this, collecting data on their customers, but actually doing something with the data. And so thinking about how can we look at the data, summarize it in a way that's helpful across all of our teams, product, marketing, sales, and then think about what are the key trends that we observe and how does that fit well with our product roadmap, what's practical at this time, what's achievable in the near term, and then kind of setting longer term goals. So I think a lot of companies will collect data but may not action those opportunities. I also can't highlight enough the value of qualitative feedback from customers. So I think I, as an on-the-ground CEO, would go to lots of in-person events and talk to our customers in person. I still do quite a bit of sales, so I talk to our customers over the phone and Zoom. And that experience as leading the company, but also being on the ground with the customers gives you all these beautiful anecdotes that wouldn't come out in a survey. You start to put pieces together and see where the data can overlap. And so I think having that focus on qualitative data and feedback from clients, prospective customers, and existing is so important for early stage companies.
And I believe also beyond getting the data, you establish rapport with your customer. And like Marylene said, her customers were her biggest evangelists, right? So that's one way to do that. Do you feel like just you talking to them build a more loyalty to your brand?
Absolutely. And I think showing up and saying, look, I'm the founder, CEO, I care what you have to say. How is this product working for you? How can we make it better? I think our customers respond really well to that, and they're excited to also have a chance to influence the journey of the company and the products we're building.
And Marylene, what about you?
I like the process you observe and describe, Heather. In fact, we start with the ideal customer profile. And we quickly find out that when we talk to customer, they are not part of the ideal customer profile. So in the end, we have to be able to change what our ideal customer is going to be. And the ideal customer profile is ultimately the customers you manage to have and build from the data you get. So you have several phases in the way you define the ideal customer profile, because you also have to include the fact that even if you think that some type of people are going to be your customer, you're going to find that even though they like your product, they may not necessarily buy it, okay? Mm-hmm. And for us, when we start a company, we think that, wow, the wow moment, look how great this is. And your potential customer will tell you, yes, it's really great. But it doesn't mean that our wow moment will coincide with the fact they will buy. They may buy 1 year, 2 years later. And this is what we have to always factor in. We have our tempo as innovators, but our customers have their own tempi as users.
So what is the responsibility of the company where you identify a potential customer that loves your product, but yet they're not ready to buy, or they don't just flat out buy? How do you make that leap from that point on?
Well, you have to be both impatient and patient. Okay? You have to really keep track of the people who are interested but are not buying by pampering them, okay? Sending them information, sending them interesting real case studies, testimonials. And one day they are going to feel ready for it. They need to be encouraged. Take as a parameter that customers are lazy, even if they adore you. So you have to be patient. And so you have to have enough money to be patient, okay? You cannot hope that because it's great, people need it, that they're going to buy it.
Well, VCs and investors hate the term runway. They want action. How do you really kind of be patient and impatient, accelerating that? And also what I'm hearing is that communication, educating the customer, building the relationship, continuing to provide value. And by the way, the communication piece is brought to you by Brian Sparks, communication expert. What would you do in order to kind of accelerate that and I don't know, let it go, not burn time? I mean, there's a lot there. I really don't know where to go with that.
Well, first, the VCs who don't understand the logic of being both impatient and patient may not be your good VC, because it may mean that they have never run a company in the first place. Okay, so be careful about that.
That's a loaded statement. We can dig into it.
No, because they don't understand how complicated.
It's back to the roadmap, the many roads, right? Yeah,
exactly.
It's very complicated, and so the best VCs do know they can be hard on us, but they actually do know that it's not going to happen just like this in a snap. They. Also, you don't want to push customers too fast because they may not be good customers. If you push your products down the throat to customers, they actually may not use the product and they may abandon your product. So you have to build a sophisticated relationship. I'm sure you.
That's a whole other show right there. And so Heather, I want you to kind of finish your thought on that information that you get from your customers. How do you take what Marylene is saying and find that early adopter and scale that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of analysis of our existing customers.
Yes.
So I love that you highlight that. Really, when we think about multifamily housing, looking at what's the age of the construction, how many residential units, what are the geographies, who did we actually sell to? Was it the asset manager, the property manager? And we actually now have so many customers we can analyze internally who said yes and try to identify trends to then inform our future sales and marketing. So that's been super helpful for us. But the reality is also observing the trends and the political and regulatory landscape that we operate in. So we have to be very aware of the way in which incentives and rebates influence what we sell. And, actually account for that when we look at who bought from us. How much was that influenced by the fact that they may be in California, where you can get $6,000 off an EV charger in certain markets, and really think about these other factors that are influencing the buying decision. So we do spend a lot of time looking at, the raw data of who bought from us, but also kind of placing that within the broader market context.
Is this in-house, or are you suggesting entrepreneurs look outside themselves? What is kind of the balance of finding that advantage to get this information?
Mm-hmm. I think with early stage teams, it's probably in-house, because hiring a third-party consulting company is going to be pretty expensive. But that said, as teams grow and there's more need for this sort of ecosystem analysis, that can be outsourced. I'd also highly recommend thinking about resources like graduate students who might want to work on this, or MBA students who are looking for an opportunity to apply their analytic thinking to a real practical opportunity. So there may be some ways to get some outside help without having to.
You almost
pay.
need like a chief resource officer to think so creatively in order to make yourself go. I see you, Marylene. You have something on the tip of your tongue to add to this.
No, I think she has a very, very good description of the complexity of an ecosystem. We don't sell to a customer. We sell to a customer who lives in a given environment. And this environment has multiple layers that can encourage them to buy, or oppositely deter them from buying. And this is what I call in my book. I have a whole chapter on how complex it is to build all the layers in which our customers live. And so we need data analysts, but we need also anthropologists, sociologists, sometimes psychologists. And in fact, startups do this work pretty well, sometimes without even knowing it. And when they go to consultant, all of a sudden, all this analysis disappears. So stay with your internal team, because you have the right data to do that, and the right people to put the data in relevant layers. And I have a full chapter called The Innovation Kairos in my book.
I love it. I can't wait to read the book. Go ahead, Marianne.
It seems like one of the common thread that I'm hearing is you're very data driven. And there's so many studies out there that show that data driven organization are probably like 10 to 15% better operational wise. But let's say an entrepreneur does not have a data background. How do they acquire that? Or did you do the data analysis? Did you hire someone to do it? How did you get started with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a pretty strong analytical background. And so initially it was myself and my early hires, we were doing all the analysis. I think that it's something, if it's not intuitive for the founder CEO, finding folks who can help with that is important. But I also want to highlight, it's not all about crunching numbers in a spreadsheet from a survey. It is about thinking about, all the interviews you've had, all the customers you've talked to in the last 30 days, and then thinking about ways in which you can bucket the trends you see. That might look like putting sticky notes all over a wall, identifying like key words you heard or key sentiments you heard. So I don't think it has to be overly complicated and sophisticated at the early stages. It's more about thinking about the feedback you've received and then how to process that and action that.
So finding opportunities. Yes, Brian, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I was raising my hand like I was in class. But we got to go to a break in a second. Heather, before we go to a break, tell us really quick, what's next for you in the company, and how can people connect with you?
Yeah, of course. So we are actively bringing a new product to market, which is super exciting. As I mentioned, we are commercializing technology we've exclusively licensed from the U.S. Department of Energy. And so what we are bringing to market is an adapter that allows us to retrofit any charger and layer our reservation and management software on top of that. So that'll be out end of this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And
Fabulous.
then in order to connect with us, check out our website, evmatch.com. And, there's lots of ways to connect and look at opportunities to either host a charger yourself if you have a property, or if you're thinking about getting an electric car, ways to connect with our network and use our charging stations.
All right.
And then, Heather, I just want to add to that. You are also adding to your round, correct? Because you are scaling fast.
That's correct.
So I want to make sure to mention that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So definitely those of you out there interested in connecting with Heather, you can connect her through her website as well as LinkedIn, any other ways of connecting.
Yeah, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, X. But of course, EVmatch.com gives you kind of the most robust information.
Great. Brian, let's take a quick break. This is Silicon Valley Impact on Pirate Cat Radio, KPCR 92.9 FM in Los Gatos.
Okay, go.
All right, we're back with Marianne, Marilyn, Janet, and Heather. And Janet has taken the seat to Marianne's left. Welcome in, Janet. Give us a little intro about who you are and what you're doing. And I'm excited to jump into this conversation with you.
Hey Brian, excited to be here today too. So I'm Janet Gehrman, co-founder of Scoop Analytics. We're the first analytics platform powered by spreadsheets made fully for business users. And I'll probably talk about that a bit more. But a quick background on me, I met my two co-founders over a decade ago, actually at my first job out of college. It was a sales representative for Burst. I started at sales there in the SDR role, cold calling, and then worked my way up to lead SMB sales there. I went from there to business school because I had an undergraduate degree in biochemistry and figured I needed to learn a little bit more than operating on rats and doing neurosurgery for the world of business I now found myself in. From there, I did PE due diligences for 2 years for private equity firms buying software companies, and then went to JP Morgan where I helped launch Wealth Plan there.
Wow. Okay, so I'm not going to begin to even talk about both sides of your brain.
Great intro, by the way.
Yeah,
I
great
really appreciate
intro.
it. You covered a
Both
lot.
sides of your brain just completely pushed with sales on one end, bio on the other. Marianne, I got a question. Can I take
Yes,
the first
of course.
one? Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, Janet, tell me what you love about what you do.
What I love about what I do is the same thing that I've loved in every job that I've had. I love the diversity. So a lot of people ask me questions about what does a normal day look like as a founder. And there is no answer for that. Every founder that I know has a different answer. Marilyn, her average Monday looks probably very different than her average Friday. Heather, I imagine it changes day over day, year over year. And what I love is that I get to have so many different hats. My official role at Scoop is co-founder and doesn't code. So Brad and Gabe are both terrific technical co-founders, and I'm busy with the go-to-market, the website, and a number of other initiatives that we're working on. And I really love just the diversity and the constant change.
So you wear a lot of different hats, and Marianne, I'm gonna let you kind of take it from here. But what is your favorite hat to wear throughout the day when it comes to talking about your product? I mean, you said marketing, right? That's really kind of where your niche is now. What hat do you love to wear the most?
The extrovert hat.
The extrovert hat. Okay.
I love that. And Janet is a wonderful networker. Actually, where did we meet? We met online. That's crazy to say, but we met through LinkedIn. And then I met her at a co-working space and then at a few different events that we have. And I think that's your superpower, is that you make people feel comfortable in your presence. You make people laugh, and everybody loves being around you. And I think that's what contributed to one huge announcement that you made last week. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so for all of you who didn't see, Scoop Analytics raised our seed round, $3.5 million, led by Rich Ventures.
Wow. Yeah.
$3.5 million. Just let that sink in for a second. How are you feeling about it? What are the emotions that are coming to you now?
The first emotion was excitement. The second emotion was thinking of my to-do list.
I bet your to-do list now is bigger than ever. But tell us a little bit about some of the milestones that you want to hit now that you have $3.5 million.
So I think the big focus for Scoop and for any company after you raise is great. It's additional fuel, but how do we get our customers to really continue to like us and grow? How do we scale? What are the go-to-market different strategies? What do we need for engineering, product, marketing, and sales? And really, how do we raise that money because we delighted our early customers? Well, how do we keep onboarding additional customers? How do we keep exciting them? And how do we keep scaling?
So it goes back to the customer, the ICP, right? That Heather and Marylene said. What does your ICP look like, and how did you come to find out what it is?
Talking. So my team's been in the analytics space for over 2 decades. I've been in it for a decade. Brad and Gabe both been in it for 2 decades. And combined, we have half a century of experience, if you kind of add it that way, although we don't go back to the 1950s. And really how we thought about it is we started as a horizontal product. So what we do is we scoop data from operational reports as opposed to going through APIs, ETL, or a lot of the acronym soup that business users, frankly, have never touched before. So there's a lot of business users who have used SQL and other tools, and maybe they've touched it once. Maybe they're just experts in spreadsheets. So we talked with them. We talked with companies from, somebody who just started something to a lot of enterprise organizations and figured out who has the need, who does it make sense to. So I've worked at JP Morgan. That's a very long sales cycle. I've also sold to companies that size. I know what it's like to get into those and what makes sense for our size and our scale. And
so talk a little, I want to stop there before we roll right by. Who is your target market? You talked about how you kind of established who it is, but who is it now? How do you find that fit, and how are sales going, or your traction going, now that you know exactly who it is? Because it's got to be good to get the raise that you got.
It's really exciting. The conversations, once we really found our target market and started reaching out to them, was incredible.
And who is your target market?
The target market is revenue, finance, marketing, and sales operations at primarily SMB companies at this point. So everybody has a different definition of SMB. Currently, we're defining it as roughly 50 to 1,000 people. It's at that size where, revenue is not public for most of these companies, so we don't have a specific revenue that we're looking at. It's somebody who has enough data to analyze, and a large enough company where you've got that data to analyze, and then a small enough company where the sales cycle is not going to be 3 years.
And you take that information, and what problem do you solve? And then what is the ROI on the back end of that problem solve?
Yeah, so going in, I think everybody's really had that meeting and that moment on a Monday morning or a Friday where they've got a slide deck that they got to get out, and they're presenting to sales management or marketing management or finance and say, hey, here's the week over week change. So usually that's done through a couple systems. You pull your dashboard from something like Tableau or Power BI. You download some of your CRM data from Salesforce or Pipedrive from HubSpot, get a nice Excel out of that, and then also grab data from a couple other data sources, probably one that you asked an analyst to pull, screenshot all of those and put them into Google Slides or PowerPoint. That's not a ton of fun, and that is a ton of time. So that's really what we look to turbocharge, is instead of pulling data through APIs, we scoop it directly from operational reports, easy enough that any business user can do it. That's the first thing. Second, we can augment or blend it with spreadsheets. So I assume most people know a VLOOKUP, a SUMIF. If not, we have that help within the platform too. Third is we've got an analytics canvas that you can also present directly out of. So upload your PowerPoint or Google Slides to Scoop, have the beautiful format that somebody in design worked really hard on, and then put those dashboards and charts directly within Scoop, and you can click present and present right out of, and you can drill down. That typical question the marketing or sales leader asks is, okay, those are good numbers, but let's see them by marketing campaign. Let's see them by region. Let's see them by sales rep. And that's the moment where you usually flip to the appendix and you have 50 slides in the appendix and really hope that Monday morning at 8 a.m., when you were still decaffeinated, you remembered to add that cut of the data.
I love that. So you are helping businesses be more productive, save time on gathering all that data. I want to go back to, you just raised the massive amount of funding. How did you do it? What is your secret? Because I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs are listening to it.
So I think the first thing especially in this market for raising money, is always thinking of not the investors first. So many people who I know focus on who are the investors that you can introduce me to, what are they raising? What's their target portfolio? What investors care about is, what are your customers saying about you? Who is your ICP? Is it a large enough market? Is there a reason for why you too? So in terms of our founding team at Scoop, we have a lot of analytical experience, Brad's been in the analytics space for the past 2 decades. He was the original product manager at Siebel, which got bought out by Oracle. He was one of the, he founded, led, and sold Burst, the first business intelligence platform in the cloud. And then it's Gabe. He's got 2 decades of experience in analytics. I've got a decade of experience. So it's really why us? And then it's why our customers? What are they saying about us? And of course, you have to have the numbers. That's bread and butter for any raise. But it's also making sure what is after that. The key that investors aren't worried about is, okay, you get however many millions, whether you're at the pre-seed stage where it's, $1 million or $2 million, seed stage of a couple million or few, to hundreds of millions of dollars. What investors want to know is, do you have the potential to really scale and grow into $1 billion or decabillion long term? And it's making sure that you can do that. And going back to those earlier conversations, we talked about a lot about ICP, a lot about people telling you in conversations. Part of that's knowing what to do. Part of the conversation is also knowing what not to do.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit more about that. I think as you think through you have your ICP, you have a product market fit. Now you ultimately strategize around your go-to-market. How have you strategized around that information, that data, and attack the market and shown scalability, that this is a venture project rather than just a niche? A niche is important, but how have you demonstrated that and proven that this is a venture project?
Yeah, so part of that's just finding an ICP and narrowing it down to the right size. One of the interesting things when we first started out, and I think this is something every entrepreneur struggles with a little, is you get so much information. People often say part of your strategy is saying yes. Half of your strategy is also saying no.
Mm-hmm.
What are the conversations where you get a piece of product feedback and you think, that's impossible, that's not our target market, that doesn't make sense to build? And again, you have to think through, what if this makes sense, and what if this broadly appeals, and what if this is just one person's opinion who wants to be very helpful, but they don't know as much about your company as you do.
It's making sense of the data, not just saying, okay, well, this is what the customers are telling us, but this is what they're telling us. And at the same time, we need to stay focused on these things because we don't want to detract ourselves from kind of our goals, correct? So figuring out what to work on, but also what not to work on at the same time. So when you were raising, this is a question. So Brian asked you a really good question. What are some common questions investor asked you? Like, what would founders who are raising expect to answer?
Honestly, the whole gamut. I think I could go on for this entire podcast about the question. There's a lot of really good standard pitch decks around what's your total SAM, TAM, in the opposite order, around who's your target market, how do you scale, what are your plans, what's your early traction, why you, why now, what part of technology. It's 2024. There's always going to be a question about AI. So a lot of the really general questions that's asked to any company, and then also the specific questions around knowing your market, knowing your customer, knowing why your team.
Got it. So really having your pitch well prepared and your answer prepared in advance before going to talk to these investors.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, what I heard there that it's an interesting perspective is, yeah, they're going to ask you about traction. Yeah, they're going to ask you about projections, what's the problem you're solving, but you seem to have an experience in your raise about them asking about your team and the unique team that you have that can execute on this. How much, if you could put a percentage to it, of time spent around doing due diligence on your team was spent? Was it very quick, like, immediately we know we can trust you to do this, or was there a deeper dive, like almost like a job interview?
I think each investor did it their own specific way. It really depends. Every investor has their own personal, how well do they know you? How well do they know the team? Brad Peters, my CEO, has been in the Valley for a long time and has a previous exit. So there are certain things where, he has an incredible analytical background, and that adds strength to his team. I've got a fair amount of experience of my own. So does Gabe. So it's looking at that team as a whole package and then also thinking through what are the previous successes that team has had.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about, Janet, what's next for you and Scoop over the next 6 to 18 months, and how can people connect with you?
Easiest way to connect with me is, fortunately, due to my first name, I'm one of the few Janets. I think if you put in on LinkedIn Janet and Scoop, I should be the only thing that pops up. I will not subject you to spelling my last name. I'm sure you can find it in the podcast notes. And then for checking out Scoop, scoopanalytics.com, you can start scooping today if you want.
And so tell us a little bit about what's next for you and your team now that you have, some runway.
Continuing to build traction. So we've got a lot of exciting go-to-market initiatives that we're working on, some of which we'll be launching over the summer, some of which may have been launched by the time this podcast is out. But it's continuing to build traction and delight our customers.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, Janet, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure having you, and Marylene and Heather as well. I just want to take a second.
Yeah, go ahead. We got a little bit more time, so go ahead.
We have a little bit more time. Yes.
Yeah, let's work it.
Well, before we finish, I want to congratulate Marianne for doing what she does.
Oh, thank you.
She is an amazing networker. I met her via LinkedIn, and I was totally impressed, given her big network, how busy she is, that she responded right away. And I think the secret for success is when people connect with you, connect with them immediately. And you're just amazing. In addition to being a phenomenal VP of engineering, which I've discovered also. And building this group of women founder is amazing.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the Women Founder group. So Heather and Janet here are part of the Women Founder. Heather pitched at our last pitch night. She did an awesome job. And Janet is one of the most active community member, always helping other women founder. And Marylene, you also did so much for the women in the Valley just by inspiring us all and kind of paving the way. So I'm really excited to have all these incredible women here. And both, Brian, thank you for having us and giving us a platform.
B squared. So Marianne, before we say goodbye, any upcoming events that you are...
Yes, I have an event. So we have a gala for women in tech happening on June 27th. We're bringing in some really cool DJs. It's going to be a fun night where we're just going to celebrate all of us and all of the accomplishments that we're doing. So it's going to be at the SVB Dome. Please check it out. Follow me on LinkedIn or subscribe to my newsletter and you'll get more information about it.
Great. And I will definitely put that in the show notes. I'll put that in LinkedIn. We can connect with you. I think that's it, Brian. That's a wrap for today. I want to thank you all for listening to Silicon Valley Impact. You can join us here every Tuesday from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Also, check out all our shows on Spotify. Make sure to follow us on Silicon Valley Impact on Instagram. We will see you all next week. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, ladies.
Bye.
Thank you.